I've created a story called Three Worlds. Imagine a benign creator of the universe. And this creator of the universe created three worlds. The first world had lots of very small tower blocks, crunched really close together. They weren't very tall, but they were crunched really close together. The second world had not quite as many tower blocks. They were a little bit higher, and they were spaced a little bit further apart. And the third world, as you've probably guessed, had even taller tower blocks. There weren't as many of them, and they were spaced even further apart. Now, if you wanted to communicate with these tower blocks, and I'm going to ask Rachel to help. Rachel, here's a message. In the first world, you don't have far to run. Could you just go over there and pass it to the person next to you? You don't have far to run, and then you can pass the messages across, and maybe over there as well. And it's really easy to communicate in this first world. In the second world, there you go. You have a little bit further, about halfway up, please. You have a little bit further to run, and pass it a little bit further across. Thank you. And the messages go further across, and maybe another one as well, if that's okay. So maybe that side. There's no money in these envelopes, by the way, in case you were wondering. And finally, as you've probably guessed, in the third world, you've got even further to run. There you go. Even further to run, right to the end. And if you can pass them to the very ends of the rows, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. It takes a lot longer to get up these steps, and it takes a lot longer to pass the messages from one building to the other. Now, okay, what this does is, whilst Rachel's exhausting herself, what this does is it mimics something really interesting. It mimics what happens in a lot of organizations. You've got different types of communication. You've got what they call local communication, regional communication, and global communication. This is what you might call cross-functional communication. And we know from the statistics and workplace statistics, and this is from McKinsey & Company, 2019, cross-functional operations typically outperform less diverse operations by 30 to 40%. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask people to understand that the first world was the autistic world, the second world was the dyslexic world, sorry, the neurotypical world, and the third world was the dyslexic world. What do I mean? Well, Rachel, we've got some cabbages. Could you give a cabbage to that gentleman there? Could you stand up, please? Thank you. And can we have a volunteer from this front row as well? Thank you very much. Could you stand up and hold the cabbage? And what we have is we've got some chopsticks. Are they chopsticks? Barbecue sticks. Barbecue sticks. Over there we get barbecue sticks, and here we get some toothpicks. Can you put the barbecue sticks quite far apart on your cabbage, please? And can you put the little things really close together in clumps on your cabbage? What you'll notice is this person here and this person here, they're making wonderful examples of these three worlds. Wonderful examples of what the three worlds look like. Can you show them to the people in the audience? They don't have to be complete, it's okay. Perfect. Oh, beautiful, that's really nice. There you go. Round of applause, thank you. You can keep the cabbages, that's your gift. You can keep the cabbages. Now, you may ask, why am I giving you a lesson in theology and cosmology when we're supposed to be talking about dyslexia and autism? Well, the truth is we are talking about dyslexia and autism. There is, oopsie-daisy, something that you have in your brain called mini columns. These are essentially little stacks of neurons, and they help information run up and down and jump from neuron to neuron. In the autistic brain, typically, the mini columns are quite small, they're quite short, and there's a lot of them packed quite closely together. In the neurotypical brain, whatever that means, they're a little bit longer, not as many of them, and they're spaced a little bit further apart. In the dyslexic brain, they're quite tall, not as many of them, and spaced even further apart. They're really quite, maybe 1.5 millimeters, something like that. This is why I've got curly hair, so you can't see them sticking up out of my head. And what this means is that when we communicate, when our brains communicate with each other, literally speaking, autistic people are able to focus and see details that other people might not. Dyslexic people have got this global view. So it's not just a metaphor. This is based in biology. And what it means is that typically speaking, dyslexic and autistic people come out in all the objective tests as objectively more creative than neurotypical people.